Hi everybody, check out this basket. I got it for $5 at the Goodwill and I like it. It's in really good shape. It's not too terribly old, but I just think it needs a little makeover so I can resell it. So I'm going to first start by taking off this tag and getting it prepped for paint. And I also want to remove the bottle opener. I have plans for that. So I'm just going to unscrew it all and remove that bottle opener and the handle. Now I almost feel like this piece was maybe made with one of those laser cutter, wood cutter, because of the type of wood it is. But regardless, it's still really cute. This piece had me up in the air as far as what I wanted to do with it. I originally wanted to just, restain it and turn it into something for a Father's Day gift. But then I'm like, you know what? Most of my customers who come back to me, they look for the home decor. So that is where I did eventually go with this piece. But I am just going to take a 220 grit sandpaper and just go over the entire piece. This type of wood is notorious for having little bitty splinters come up. So I'm just wanting to get that all sanded down and nice and smooth. And I even go on the bottom and sand it out just to make it smooth. Now, as far as the handle, I did give it a good sanding as well. And I originally thought that I just was going to stain it. And so I took some dark liquid patina and just with a baby wipe went over it and stained it. Now I'm going to grab, I have one of these little milk bottles that came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to grab that bottle opener, and I am going to coat both with a good coverage of Mod Podge. And I'm just using the basic matte. You could probably use really any Mod Podge you want, but this is what I'm using. And again, just coating it very well. And I also end up coating the screw heads as well. Now I've got the color Raw Sienna. I love this color anytime that I'm doing any kind of faux rust technique. This is from Folkart Matte, and I'm trying to find it in a larger container, and I'm having no luck. But anyway, I'm going to coat both the bottle opener, the screw heads, and this bottle in this color. And I just eventually went to a little sponge dauber to do the bottle. The brush just was not cutting it. Using the sponge dauber makes it a whole lot easier to apply paint to this bottle. While that paint is still wet, I'm just going to sprinkle some cinnamon on top of it. I've also got some dark and decrepit dust that I'm going to be adding in there. I came across this little solution on that little kraut cutter piece that I did, and I loved the rust technique. Apparently, I don't stick to the same rust technique because I'm always finding a way to do it just a little bit better, a little bit different, some way I like best. So I'm just going to share this with you, and you guys will have to let me know. But as I'm working that cinnamon into the pieces, I will, with a brush, kind of alternate it with the paint. I also dip it in some Mod Podge to help it stick down. And I just kind of do this back and forth, and then I'll grab some of the dark and decrepit dust and add that as well. Once I'm happy with that coverage, I will set it aside to dry. And then I'm just going to do the same exact thing pretty much with this bottle. I'm not going to cover the whole bottle with the Mod Podge. I just kind of here and there places that I just want an excessive amount of rust buildup. And that's what I do. Just kind of go back and forth with that cinnamon, back and forth with that Mod Podge to help it stick. And I especially pay attention to going around the rim and the bottom edge. And I also apply that dark and decrepit dust in there just to give it a variance in color and make it look just a little bit more realistic. And you see, I just kind of adding that around that lip and just applying it. Once I am finished with this and it dries down, I'm going to take it outside, and I do spray it with a Rust-Oleum clear coat spray paint. Okay, so now once I figured out, what I was going to do with this piece, I am using the milk paint by Sweet Pickins, and this is in the color Creamy. And my first couple strokes, I thought the paint was just a little too thick, so I did go ahead and add some water just to kind of thin it out a little bit, and then I think I added too much water. So, whatever. I will say I did not get a whole lot of chipping or crackling from this. I did spray this tote down with a coat of shellac prior to painting it, and you see kind of how thin after I added that little bit more water it came out. So I do go ahead and apply about 2 to 3 coats of this paint. I dry it down with my heat gun in between, and I paint all the outer surfaces, including the bottom, but I don't paint the inside. I still wanted that wood to show through. So after I got my coats on, I decided I wanted a lot of this paint moved. I just want it to look, very vintage, like it's been sitting out. I grabbed a 60 grit piece of sandpaper. I couldn't find my finger sander at first to attach this piece of sandpaper to, so just kind of going with it here. But I am just going to go around, especially around the edges, removing a lot of that paint. I just want this to look, like I said, very rustic. And of course, anybody watching this, if you don't like distressing, then skip this part. If you want more distressing, do more. If you want less distressing, do less. This is so easily changed to your preferences. And my finger was getting a little tired. I wasn't really getting the look that I wanted. So I'm like, where in the world did my dang finger sander go? And I did eventually find it. And that just makes it a little bit easier to apply the right amount of pressure to really get that distressed. And once I did that, I did go over it with a 220 grit sandpaper just to smooth it all out. All right, so with my Cricut machine, I decided I wanted to go old school with this. I found an image on Cricut Design Space. I did not create this. This is just an image, like I said, I found on Cricut Access. So I have 2 of them here, and I'm going to put one on one side and one on the other. And with a stencil brush and a Folkart black chalk paint, I am going to stencil that image in there. And of course, remember, when you are stenciling, light coats is best. And I end up doing 2 to 3 light coats. I did not want this extremely vibrant with that black paint because I am going to be going over it with some sandpaper. And like I said, here I'm going to take some sandpaper and just kind of go over that. I do use a brush to wipe away that black dust because if it's kind of still wet, I didn't want it to smear everywhere. This is the opposite side. Sorry if you guys hear that squeaking in the background. That is Hetty once again with that dang squeaky ball that don't squeak. So sorry about that. Now I am going to take some clear wax and I'm going to apply this all over where I have paint down. Of course, you need to seal in milk paint. You need to seal in the chalk paint. So I'm going to just seal that in very well. And I do want some aging, so I'm going to grab the dark wax by DIY. This is the first time I've ever used this, and I'm just going to brush it on and then wipe it off. I don't want it extremely distressed, but just enough so it looks aged. And if you apply too much of the dark wax, you can always use a clear wax to help remove some of that, kind of like an eraser. But I'm really just focusing on those edges mainly, but I do of course bring it all through, but I definitely want to make sure I get some of that on the edges. And just wipe it off. And you can just see between the slats and that piece I just did how it just kind of discolors it. If that's not your thing, then skip that. Now, after I do this piece like this, I am going to put back on that bottle opener and the handle, which I did go ahead and paint with the milk paint and distress it back, just like I did the box. Since I had all that wood on the inside, I felt that handle also needed to be painted. I just thought the contrast looked way better. And then I'm going to add that bottle into this tote, add some lavender pieces, and it's ready for display. You guys will have to let me know, how did you like this project? Did it turn okay? Should I have done something different? I don't know. Sometimes I'm just kind of like, maybe I should have done something different, but I do like the way it turned out. And again, let me know what you guys think about it. Okay, so this piece right here, I found this big 18-inch round at the thrift store for $4.99, and who can say no to that? However, they've got some vinyl on this, and it wasn't even permanent vinyl, so this stuff just came off so easy. I just pulled it all apart. I want a nice, clean, blank slate. So we're just going to tear everything off, including the bow and the knotted handle. And then I'm going to take it out in the garage and I'm going to sand it. I use an 80 grit sandpaper first. Once I get as much of that old paint off as I possibly can. And then I also, the one side that is just left raw, I'm also going to give it a nice good sanding. I will go back over it with a 220 grit sandpaper just to smooth it all out. Do make sure I go around those edges. And once we get back in the craft room, I did forget to fill these holes before I sanded it, so I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. I'm just going to use some wood filler and just put in there. I'm thinking about trying something different. I wasn't really too happy with the way my paint went over this wood filler. I don't know, maybe it's just getting old. I don't know. But I'm just going to fill it in. I'm going to apply that on both sides so I can get that hole nice and covered, let it sit and dry, and then just go back over it with a little hand sander to smooth it out. Now I'm going to take this gel stain from, I believe, Americana. It's the color walnut, and I'm just going to put some in a cup, and then I'm going to add a little bit of water to it and mix it up. Of course, I added a little too much water, but that's okay. It all works out. I'm just going to apply this with a brush, just to help kind of get that everywhere. And then I will go behind my sections and wipe it back with this towel, just kind of working it in the wood. And then just proceed to do that through the rest of this piece. I will do the same thing around the edges. And then on the back side, this was as much of the paint I could get off. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go over it with this gel stain also and just cover it, wipe it back, and then that's just going to be the back side of this piece. And I actually do like the way it came out with that stain going over that residual white paint. I think it turned out pretty good. It's got a pretty interesting look to it. But again, this is going to be our new backside. All right, you can see back and front, and on our front side, I'm just going to grab a white paint. This paint has a sealer built into it. It is a Fusion all-in-one paint, and I'm going to cover the entire front side, including the edges, and I apply just one coat of this paint. Now I am going to grab the color Queen Bee from DIY Paint and apply a coat right on top of that white paint. Now I did initially plan to apply some candle wax to it because I definitely wanted to see the white. I wanted to hopefully see some of the wood, and but I forgot to apply the candle down before I applied this color. So there's that, but it's okay. It works out. Now, after that dries, I'm going to take some clear liquid patina and apply a coat right on top of that Queen Bee. And that's because the Queen Bee doesn't have any kind of sealer in it. And I did not want this yellow to bleed onto my next color. So, like I said, we're just going to seal that color in. Now I'm going to grab some milk paint from Sweet Pickins, and I've got the color Pantry Door and Annie Jane, I believe is what it's called. If it's anything different, I'll just put that right up here on the screen. And I just do about a half a scoop of the bluish color, and then I do a full scoop of the Pantry Door. I just wanted a little bit more of a blue hue to this, not much because people do love that green. And then I will just add about 1.5 tablespoons of water. And we'll mix that up, and then I'm going to let it sit aside for about 10 minutes to thicken up. And once it's thickened up, we're just going to give it a nice good stir. And then I'm going to use a chip brush and apply that color. And then I remembered, oh my gosh, add some candle wax. I'm just gonna, this is the only candle I had in my craft stash. So I'm just going to apply some candle wax here and there, see if it makes any difference with the chipping of the paint. And I'm just going to apply our milk paint concoction, if you will, all over the top and the edges. And in between coats, I am going to dry it down with my heat gun, hoping that I'm going to get some nice good chippiness going on here. And I am going to apply a second coat and repeat the process of drying it down afterwards, bringing out that chippiness just as quick as I can because I can't wait to see it, you guys. And then I'm going to bring it outside, and with some 220 grit sandpaper, I am going to just sand this away, hoping to remove some of the paint from the top, showing the different layers. One of these days, I'm going to have a building where I can do all of this in one place so I don't have to keep walking up and down the stairs. But until then, that's what it has to be. Now, once I get this upstairs, would you look at that beautiful, beautiful paint? Oh my goodness, you can see that Queen Bee coming through. I love it. So now we are going to seal this milk paint in, and I am using a clear liquid patina once again. And I have found I like to use these sponge brushes for this liquid patina. I don't know, it just kind of goes on a lot quicker, but you know, you'll probably see me bounce back and forth with paint brushes. Now, I wanted to apply some feet to this because, yes, we are making a tray. We're not making a door hanger. But I thought, you know what? Instead of going out and buying some feet, let's see what I have in these spindles. So at first I was going to trim down the one, and then I found this other piece. And I thought, you know what? These little individual squares on here would just make great feet. So I just took them out, trimmed them down with my miter saw, and yeah. So now I'm just going to trace where I'm going to be placing these. Now I will tell you, one of my little feet came out a little too short, but that's okay. In the end, I'm gonna add some cork to the bottoms, and I'll just double up on the cork to kind of help alleviate that some. Now to glue these in place, I am going to use some JB Weld. I am really liking this stuff. This stuff, it not only works very well, but it actually dries pretty quickly, so you can continue to work. Now, it's not completely cured for at least 24 hours, I believe, but it's dry enough to where you can definitely handle it and continue to work. But so all you do is you just squeeze the two parts out, you mix it up very well, and I just like to use a little itty bitty popsicle stick, and we'll just rub that right onto each of these little feet and make sure I stick them down in the right place. This is why I trace, because I'll never remember. I'll never remember where I wanted them to go. And we'll just do this to all 4 pieces, and then I will flip it upside down and let it set up for at least a half hour. All right, so this is pretty much the star of the show. This is the Flowers by the Poets from IOD. This is from their latest release, the summer release of 2026. And I'm telling you, when I got my hands on this wood round, I saw this. I mean, I knew I wanted to do something with these sunflowers. So I'm going to trim out pretty much all the sunflowers, some wording, and then we're going to put this beautifully so on this wood round. And since I'm a very visual person, I just kind of cut these pieces up and I want to lay them out. This is just how I work. This is how my brain works. I have visibly got to see this before I start placing it down. And then that's just what I will do. But aren't these sunflowers absolutely gorgeous? I love them. I think they are beautiful. Oh my God, they are so well done. Bravo to IOD for this book. It's beautiful. Now I start with just one piece at a time just to make sure I can get it all laid down where I want it. And with the little tool that is provided in your IOD booklets, I'm going to start rubbing the image on. I am going to just trim a little off of the edge that's overlapping it. And then we're just going to rub. And as I'm rubbing, I'm going to start in one section and start lifting. Rub and lift. That way, if anything's not sticking, I can lay it back down and rub some more and then continue lifting until we have this piece completely transferred down. And then I'm just going to continue on to the rest of the sections. And watch this beautiful piece just come to life. This brought me so much happiness doing this piece. I do want to let you guys know this piece is my June Zero to Hero project. Once I finished it and looked at it, I was like, well, it cost me less than $5 for the wood round. So it does qualify. And this is my Zero to Hero project, which will be up for sale. I will have that show listed in the description box if you want to head over there and bookmark that show or place a pre-bid on it. It's completely up to you. And to support, you don't have to buy anything from me. Just simply being here and supporting my YouTube channel is plenty, and I appreciate you. Now, once all of those transfers are on, I'm going to grab some clear wax and just rub this over my entire piece, just getting those transfers nice and sealed in. Once my clear wax is down, I have got some of this gray wax that I actually made up by using elephant chalk paint in a clear wax and just kind of making a gray wax or aging wax. And I'm going to go over my piece with this. I want this color to get in all those cracks, giving it that little bit of age look. And I did not want to change my paint color too much, but because I put that clear coat on top of the paint, it's going to prevent that paint from changing colors. But I'm just going to work this in around the edges as well. Again, I just want this aging wax to get in all of those grazing and cracking spaces. Okay, so I grabbed some of these handles from Hobby Lobby. I actually had them in my stash. Every time I go in there, I feel like I pick up something, some kind of hardware just to have on hand, just in case. And so that worked out that I had 2 of these. And we're just going to screw those in. They're going to be the handles for this tray. I did not like how white and vibrant they were. It just did not match the piece. So with that gray wax that I have, I just went over the handles, and that just aged them up to perfection. And once that's finished, this piece is complete. I hope you guys enjoyed this piece. I love how this came out, and I hope you guys do too. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this piece? Let me know which is your favorite. I can kind of guess which one will be a lot of favorites, because this one most definitely is mine. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.